Hello everyone, this is Indrajit Ganguly. Welcome to your history class. Dear students, in my last class I have discussed with you about the establishment of Mughal rule in India by Zahiruddin Muhammad Babur. I hope you understood that the early days of Mughal rule in India was not so very smooth and easygoing, because Babur faced lots of problems and threats from the Rajputs and Afghans, and also his successor Humayun faced the same thing. We can say that Humayun was a tragic hero in the Mughal Empire, because when he became the Mughal ruler, he faced the threats from the Afghans and lost against Sher Shah Suri. I hope you remember that Humayun gave all his life to recapture the throne of Delhi, and he was succeeded after the death of Sher Shah to recapture the throne of Delhi. But the tragedy is when he get back the throne of Delhi, he was died after some months, the fall from the stairs of his library. So that's why I considered Humayun as the tragic king or tragic hero. After the sudden death of Humayun, his son Jalaluddin Muhammad Akbar was 13 years old. So this sudden event and this incident gave the Afghan another opportunity to recapture the throne of Delhi. After the death of Humayun, Akbar was proclaimed the Emperor of India. Following Humayun's death, Bairam Khan became the guardian of Akbar. He guided Akbar at each step and prepared him for his imperial responsibilities. After becoming the emperor, Akbar faced many difficulties. The battle between the Mughal and Afghans led by Himu took place at the historic battlefield in 1556 AD, known as the Second Battle of Panipat. Dear students, don't mix up between the First Battle of Panipat and the Second Battle of Panipat. First Battle of Panipat was fought in 1526 between Babur and Ibrahim Lodi. And Second Battle of Panipat fought after just 30 years in 1556 between Mughals and Afghans, and the Afghan forces was led by Himu. In this battle, under the guidance of Bairam Khan, the Mughals became victorious. Although the guidance of Bairam Khan, at the age of 13 years, Akbar proved his capability and responsibility to the India. So students, in my today's class, I will discuss with you the contribution of Jalaluddin Muhammad Akbar in the progress and development of India. Akbar, by his leadership and conquests, brought the whole of northern India and parts of Deccan under his rule. Akbar appointed officers and established an administrative setup and a uniform judicial and revenue system. He was able to bring unity in the administrative and political systems. Thus, it is seen that through these measures, Akbar easily established unity in the country. So, first of all, I will discuss with you about the administrative policy of Akbar. In this picture, you can see that the emperor was the head of the administration and his word was law. The Akbar was the head of the administration. And he was assisted by number of officials including Wazir or Dewan, who is the head of the revenue department. Next one is Mir Bakshi, he was the head of the military department. Third one is Qazi, he was the chief judge. Fourth one is Chief Sadar, he is the supervisor or superior of the royal household. So we can say that Akbar was the head of the administration and this is the Council of Ministers. Clear? For the superior administration, for the better administration, Akbar divided the whole subcontinent into 15 subas. Here the word suba means provinces. Just take the example that in recent times, India is a very big country, right? But India was divided into 28 states and 9 union territories, right? It was done because for the administrative benefits, administrative betterment, right? So Akbar is doing the same thing. And each provinces was supervised by Subedar. Subedar means provincial leader or provincial ruler. He has the responsibility of military and civil authorities. Clear? Remember, the subas are subdivided into sarkar. Just like that, the states are subdivided into districts, and sarkars were further subdivided into parganas. Just like the districts are further subdivided into subdivisions. So in this way, the administrative system was generally developed by Akbar. Clear? But the greatest development of the Akbar's administrative system was the introduction of the Mansabdari system. Remember students, the Mansabdari system was very important for the 5 marks question. So please listen this thing very carefully, this concept of Mansabdari system. I hope you remember that in my last chapter I have discussed with you about the Iqtadari system, right? Iqtadari system is also a land revenue system which was introduced by the Delhi Sultans. And the same system, the Mansabdari system is just like a same system, but there is some dissimilarities. Okay. Now the question is, what is Mansab, right? Mansab means a rank or a position. Okay. Mansab means a rank or a position. And Mansabdar was the holder of the rank. Okay. Mansabdar is the holder of the rank. The Mughal Mansabdar were known by the number of their Jat and Sawar. Okay. But now, what is the meaning of Jat and Sawar? Jat means rank of Mansabdar, rank and position of Mansabdar. Sawar means it determined the number of horses. So, which Mansabdar has the highest rank? He will have the more number of horses. And which Mansabdar has lower rank, he will have the less number of horses. Just take an example. In Mughal India, in the Mansabdari system, the lowest rank Mansabdar only have 10 horses or 10 army officers. And the highest Mansabdar had 10,000 horses and 10,000 army officers. So this is the difference between the ranks and position. Clear? So the rank and position is, so on the basis of rank and position, your sawar and your horses will be determined. Okay, clear? Okay, now the question is, what is the duty of the Mansabdar, right? Basically, it was not possible for the Mughal Empire to look after the administration of whole India. Just like in recent times, it was not possible for the Prime Minister to look after the administration of whole India. That's why states were created, and every state has one chief minister, right? Same thing is in this Mansabdari system, the thing was generally same. Akbar gave a territory or a province to a particular Mansabdar, and it is the duty of a Mansabdar to look after the administration of the particular territory, right? And take that revenue and taxes from the particular territory. And the territory which was given to him, that was known as Jagir. The territory that the Mughal Empire given to a Mansabdar, that is known as Jagir. Jagir means territory, particular territory. Okay, and the Mansabdar took the taxes, just like the Iqtadari system. If there is 100 rupees collection of tax, 80 rupees has to be submitted to the Badshah, Mughal Emperor, and 20 rupees is the salary of the Mansabdars. But the Mansabdari system is very interesting, students. This system was not a hereditary system. It's a very important thing. Okay, and the Mansabdari system was a transferable and it was based on promotion. Which means that if a Mansabdar doing a very good job, then he will get the very good territory after some years. And if he doing a bad job, then he will get the desert area or a hilly area or rocky region where the income is very low. So this system was very effective, and that's why the Mansabdar, that's why the introduction of the Mansabdari system, Akbar administrative system became very efficient and very capable. Now the another important system that is known as the land revenue system. Remember students, the land revenue system was introduced by and was devised by Akbar's revenue minister, finance minister Todarmal. So that's why this system was also known as Todarmal Bandobast. Clear? Okay. The land revenue was taken on the basis of fertility of the land. Okay. That's why the Mughal emperor divided the land into 4 categories. What are the categories? First one is Polach, which means fertile land. Second one is Paroti, that is less fertile land. Second one is Chachar, that is inferior land. And next one is Banjar, that is infertile land. Okay, this is the 4 categories, and the collection of the tax is based on these categories. Clear? Okay. Each province was divided into revenue circles with different revenue rates. Okay, obviously there should be a different revenue rates. For fertile land, the revenue rates is different, and for the infertile land, the revenue rates are different. It's a very unique system and a very superior system. Okay, and that there was a different revenue rates for different crops, which means there is a different rates for paddy, different for wheat, different for potatoes. Clear? Okay. And the annual payment was taken from the cultivators. The cultivator has to pay 1/3 from the produce to the Mughal emperor. But if there is any natural disaster or or crop failure, then the revenue rates will be cut off. So this was a very unique system. That system was very unique. This system, it is Todarmal's land revenue system. Next, that is another important policy, another important contribution of Akbar, that is a religious policy. Remember students, Akbar was a very secular minded person. Secular means who is not religious biased. I hope you understood that Akbar was a Muslim ruler, but still he was not believing in conservative Muslim policy. He believed in religious tolerance and equality among all people. That's why, and one of his famous religious policy was that you'd be surprised to know that Akbar married a Rajput princess called Jodhabai. Akbar also believed that for the unification of India, it was required for the unity among the diverse races, because India is basically a Hindu country and Mughals, they are considered as outsiders because they are Muslims. Okay, so, and apart from the Hindu, there are Sikhs, Buddhists, Jains, many other religious peoples are also there. So Akbar believed that in India, we need all the religion, they will came together into one umbrella. These policies are generally developed by Akbar. So that's why Akbar abolished the jizya tax. Remember students, it is the correct spelling of jizya. In your book, there is a spelling called jizya. Please cut this spelling and make it as jizya. And also the pilgrimage taxes. Remember, jizya tax is only paid by the non-Muslims peoples. And pilgrimage tax, that if Hindu people wanted to go for a pilgrim at holy place, then they had to pay taxes to the Mughal Empire. So these two types of taxes was abolished by Mughal Emperor. Plus, Akbar believed in religious policy. He was inspired by the idea of Sul-e-Kul, which means universal peace. On the basis of this idea, Akbar started a new religion known as Din-e-Ilahi. Din-e-Ilahi. Remember students, all the good things from different religions were adopted in this new religion called Din-e-Ilahi. Okay, so this is the religious policy of Akbar. All the information regarding the rule of Akbar was generally taken from the famous book called Akbarnama, written by Abul Fazl. Remember students, Akbarnama basically is a biography of Akbar. Akbar was an illiterate person. Akbar could not write his own experience in a written form. Could not write his own experience. So Akbarnama is a very important document which help us to to know about the Mughal India. Basically, it was a Persian book. You can see this is a cover page of the English translation of Akbarnama. It was translated by Henry Beveridge, but Akbarnama was written by Abul Fazl. Akbarnama had 3 volumes. 1, 2 was known as Akbarnama. The 3rd volume was known as Ain-e-Akbari. Ain-e-Akbari. Remember, Ain-e-Akbari was also written by Abul Fazl. It was very important for 1 mark question. So from the Ain-e-Akbari, we basically know about the political, social and economic structure of India. And Akbarnama gave us the details of the imperial households of the Mughal Empire. Okay, this is it for today. In my next class, I will discuss with you about the other 3 important rulers of Mughal India: Jahangir, Shah Jahan and Aurangzeb. Thank you and have a nice day.